And actually, yeah, good to have you back anyway. Going to turn our attention to business. Stephen here with that. Same with our top story. The markets, really, they've been reacting to that vote in Crimea, haven't they?
Yeah, we'd seen the US markets fall at the end of last week over those fears of rising tensions between Russia and the West. But of course, the worst affected market we've seen since this crisis began has been the Russian market. It's just opened in Moscow, the MySex index, in fact, up 2.6% after the result of that referendum in Crimea. Now, there has been a massive outflow of capital from this market. Goldman Sachs saying $45 billion worth has moved from this market since the start of this year. This gains only very slightly touching to bring back some of those massive losses we've seen in recent weeks. But that's the position on the MySex index in Moscow for now. That issue of the Ukraine crisis still weighing over the Asian markets, though, as well. The Nikkei hit a one-month low in trading earlier after that result of the referendum in Crimea. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong also in the red. Fairly modest gains elsewhere, though. Analysts saying the Ukraine crisis will be the biggest issue moving the markets this week.
OK, we're going to have a look now at what's happening in the company sector, aren't we?
Yeah, we're going to start with the Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba, which has chosen New York over Hong Kong to list its shares on the stock market. News comes after months of speculation over which location the company would choose. Alibaba sells them $150 billion worth of merchandise annually, more than eBay and Amazon combined. This IPO will be the biggest on the US stock market since Facebook's launch. Shares in one of the company's major stakeholders, Japan's SoftBank, seeing gains today as a result of that announcement. Toyota says it's suspended production at its 2 plants in India after efforts to resolve a dispute with workers failed. The move by the world's biggest car maker will see some 6,400 workers locked out of their factories near Bangalore. Toyota says it took the step after deliberate stoppages of the production line and threatening of supervisors by staff. And Guinness has pulled its sponsorship of the New York St. Patrick's Day Parade in a controversy over the exclusion of gay groups from the event. It follows a similar move by rival brewers Heineken and Sam Adams in Boston. These images from the Boston Parade on Sunday. Guinness's parent company Diageo says it had hoped the New York Parade's policy of excluding LGBT groups would be reversed before the event, but it was left with no choice but to drop its sponsorship plans.
To Sweden now, Saab making a big bet really on a Swiss deal to buy its fighter planes.
Yeah, you might remember the disappointment from France's Dassault when their Rafale jets were spurned in favour of Saab's Gripons by the Brazilian Air Force. Swiss voters are set to cast their ballot on a $3.2 billion deal to buy the Gripen jets from the Swedish company. But a survey published on Sunday shows the unpopular deal may not pass there. Saab, meanwhile, has admitted that it was badly advised over the Swiss vote after a campaign donation of $200,000 was returned to the company. Our correspondent Malcolm Brabant reports from Sweden.
Sweden's top military export has gone into service in South Africa and Thailand. Recently, Brazil agreed to buy 36 Gripens for $4.5 billion. To American disappointment, the Brazilians chose the Gripen, not least because the hourly flying costs of the Swedish plane are less than half that of its US rival.
Countries are starting to talk, can they afford an air force and also a navy and the army, or do they have to choose? And we say you don't have to choose, but you have to select a fighter that gives a high capability but lowering your operating costs.
Despite the current success, there's uncertainty at the factory over whether the company can clinch the sale of 22 Gripens to Switzerland. Opponents of the deal have managed to secure a referendum, which will be held in the middle of May. The latest polls suggest that it's touch and go, with those in favour just ahead. This is the Gripen at a firing range in Switzerland, where Saab has been criticised for donating $200,000 to the Yes campaign.
We normally do not support campaigns like that because we don't interfere in the political processes. Several people convinced us that this was the way things are going in Switzerland. Obviously, that was not a very good advice. So we backed out of that. There is no Saab money in the campaign.
Saab hopes the controversy will not affect the proposed sale and that Swiss voters will follow the advice of the country's Air Force, which is convinced that the Gripen is the right plane for the future.
Yeah, Malcolm Brabant there reporting from Sweden for us. Now, finally, an upcoming investment that might just excite you if you are a fashion lover.
Yes, the owner of Jimmy Choo Shoes is said to be considering floating the brand on the London stock market. The Swiss group Labelux bought the brand in 2011 for more than 620 million euros. Sources say the flotation in London would value the company at almost 1.2 billion euros, twice the value paid for it by Labelux. We won't know yet what price the shares are going to be floated at, but I suppose the calculation will be is how many shares in Jimmy Choo will you need to actually buy a pair of Jimmy Choo shoes. They're very expensive. I looked them up earlier, around 400 euros a pair.
400 euros for a Jimmy Choo shoe, and it's hard enough to say as well, isn't it? If you float the shoes, does that mean you can walk on water?
One hopes.
Then they might be worth 400 euros a pair. All right, Stephen Carroll with Business. Good to have him back on the programme. Going to carry on the Irish theme because Oliver's here with the papers today. Ukraine, once again, the big news in the papers.
It certainly is. After yesterday's referendum